So let's give an example of, people have asked me the staff of, the stick of Moses, Musa alayhi salam. And they've said that why, this, when he threw it, it became a snake. That's one way to read the Quran. But when you look at, you see, this throwing the stick occurs in 3 places in the Quran. Okay. Now, in one, it says, فَإِذَا هُوَ ثُعْبَانٌ مُبِينٌ. It's a snake. But in the other, it mentions the same incident, فَهِيَ تَهْتَزُّ كَالْجَانِ. It is shaking as though it is a snake. So it's interesting, now in one verse Allah says it as a snake. In one he says it was shaking as though, this was Musa's stick, as though it was a snake. Now how you take this is up to you. Do you believe that Musa's stick alayhi salam became an actual snake? Many Muslims may believe that. One verse of the Quran clearly doesn't say that. It states that it was as though it was like a snake. Now, in my understanding, that it was not a snake. Okay, when he threw the thing, it was not a snake. But it was described as though it was a snake. And what was the purpose behind this? Because let's look at the objective of the Quran. Let me explain the whole story. You see, in the time of Fir'aun, magic was at its... Somebody's just laughing his head off. If you don't mind at least allowing me to finish what I have to say, before you just continuously non-stop laugh your head off, right? So, in the time of Moses, magic was the thing. Okay, it was the thing. That these people, it was seen as the elite, that these people had these special powers through the gods. Now, I want you to understand something. How were the magicians pulling off their magic? Because Allah uses a similar kind of verse to describe their sticks. That وَسَحَرُوا أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ, that when they threw the sticks, يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِمْ, it would appear to people as though they were snakes. How was that happening? If I throw a stick, it doesn't appear like that. So how was this happening? Now, many of the Mufassirin have written that they were using certain kind of compounds and chemicals. And many of the Mufassirin write that they were using things like quicksilver, which in Arabic they call zibaq, like mercury. Now, these kind of things were reacting to heat. So hence in the Quran, when they say to Musa that we will have a magic showdown, they specify the time. And Allah quotes that in the Quran. They say, وَمَوْعِدُكُمْ ضُحَى, that you have to meet us that when it's early, just after sunrise. When it's early morning. So the sun is shining down. Now, was this just coincidental that they mentioned that time? Many of the Mufassirin say no, it was, in fact you can read up the Tafasir. They say it's because they needed that light to make the mercury react, the zibaq, which was in their sticks. So they would fill their sticks with certain things, and when they would throw it, how they exactly did this, I don't know, but this is what a lot of Mufassirin do write, that the chemical, the compound they had within there was reacting with the light. And that's why Allah mentions the light of day being important for them. Now, you see, when they threw their sticks, people get, because Allah says, وَاسْتَرْهَبُوا النَّاسِ, that people, وَسَحَرُوا أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ وَاسْتَرْهَبُوهُم, people became frightened. That people had fear, that whoa, they were terrified, that these are actual snakes. They thought they were actual snakes. Everybody accepts that their sticks were not snakes. We accept this, that the magicians, their sticks weren't snakes. Allah Himself says it. But the people, وَاسْتَرْهَبُوهُم, they were petrified, Allah mentions. وَاسْتَرْهَبُوهُم, from rahab, from to be terrified, because they thought they were snakes. Now, Musa alayhi salam, is taught by Allah how they have done this. He is divinely taught. Now the thing is, the magicians didn't know, like apart outside their circle, nobody knew how they used to do that. People believed they were actual snakes, that they could turn them with the power of the gods, of the Pharaoh gods. But Musa alayhi salam is inspired and taught by Allah how these people are doing this trick. Now Allah mentions that he is then told to throw his stick. Does he come across this compound, this chemical, does he come across this? Allahu A'lam, I would believe that he does. Allah teaches him these things. Hence he throws it and he is petrified. But then Allah says in the same verse, get your hand, you see his hand which would have made contact with this, touch, place it, وَضْمُمْهُ إِلَى جَنَاحِكَ, that place your hand where either under your armpit or at your side where there's warmth, and then remove it. And it mentions that his hand lights up. And if you read what the Mufassirin say, they say it would tashi'u minhu ashi'a, that rays were coming out of it. And then Allah mentions min ghayri su', without there being any harm. Now, in this understanding, you see, there's the great Sufi scholar Muhyiddin ibn Arabi. Now he says a similar thing. He says that when Musa alayhi salam met the magicians and they threw their sticks, and then Musa threw his stick, and it appears either as a snake, or according to some people it becomes a snake. But Allah says that when he threw this, that فَإِذَا هِيَ تَلْقَفُ مَا يَأْفِكُونَ. تَلْقَفُ. It consumes. It consumes. Now it's interesting how you read. Allah doesn't say ta'kul, eat. Allah says تَلْقَفُ مَا يَأْفِكُونَ. Now it's interesting how you read this, because this can be read in two ways according to the Arabic language. Either it ate their sticks, that's one understanding, it ate their sticks, or the other understanding, it ate their lie. It exposed their lie. Now Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, he highlights as well that if Musa alayhi salam threw his stick, and his snake, just outperformed their snakes, then there would be no purpose to this. Because all that would prove to the people is that his magic is more powerful than their magic. So it reinforces a superstition. So all it takes now is another person to come and outperform Musa's magic. You see, because if what we're doing is, look, those people have brought falsehood. Which is more deserving of a prophet? To outperform them or to expose it as falsehood? So what Muhyiddin ibn Arabi highlights is that when he threw his stick exposed how they were doing the trick. So people, فَإِذَا هِيَ تَلْقَفُ مَا يَأْفِكُونَ. It consumed their trickery, their falsehood. And people realized that they don't have no power from the gods. That was just trickery. They were just bewitching us. They don't have any true power of the gods. Now you tell me which one of those two narratives befits the story. Is it one that Musa alayhi salam comes and outperforms them in magic? So he does a greater trick than them. This is to the eyes of the spectators. So they did a trick. Remember, the spectators think their snakes are real. Allah mentions that. They're petrified. They're terrified. They see the snakes and they think, whoa. Now Musa alayhi salam comes and performs a greater snake trick than them. This is to the eyes of the spectators. So they say, this is narrative one. They say, oh, we're going to go with him because his trick is better. That doesn't sound like like a divine thing to do. That doesn't sound like, that just reinforces the narrative of wherever you see magic, just go with the stronger magic. Now, no, I'm not saying Musa alayhi salam claimed to do magic, but in the eyes of the spectators, because they're doing this for the spectators. Remember that they say we're going to gather people and do this as a show, as a display. So to the people, Allah mentions the people see the magicians as real. And they see now Musa's thing as real. So if Musa, according to the spectator who's not a believer, he sees lots of snakes, whoa, a more powerful snake, whoa, okay, I'm going to go with that one because it's stronger. That doesn't reinforce Tawheed. That just simply shows, well, it seems to encourage a superstitious culture. Like, okay, just go with whoever's magic is better. So if after Musa alayhi salam dies, another person comes, does even better magic, just go with them. Or is it more befitting that Musa alayhi salam exposed their magic and showed the people that these are just liars? They have no connections with the gods that they speak of, that their gods do not help them. It is a lie. That to me sits more right with my understanding. Now you can take the other understanding. You can say, no, I want to believe that Musa alayhi salam in the eyes of the spectators did a greater magic, which we believe that was real though, and the first one wasn't real. But to the spectators it was all magic. Now they just followed him because his magical event was more powerful than the other magical event. So this seems to follow a doctrine of might is right. You know, a very kind of the argument of a very kind of but I mean a philosophical argument that is well known about might is right, especially argued by people like Thrasymachus and stuff like this from way before. Now from the time of Socrates, that might is always right. You always go with might. Now I mean you can take that approach, and many Muslims do. I see that as naive personally, but I mean they can take that. Alhamdulillah. I mean I don't say people have to believe what I'm saying. To me that's just a superficial reading of the Quran, because to me that just reinforces the other message. It just shows your one was just stronger, so we should just go with you. But if tomorrow, if after you die somebody else comes and does something stronger, we should just go with them. So, and this is what Imam Malik said. You see, this is the interesting thing. Not that he said this about the magic stick, but he said that when he was debating somebody and they said, look, let's have a debate, and he said, well, why? And they said, well, if you beat me, I'll follow you. If I beat you, you follow me. And he said, well, what if tomorrow somebody else comes and beats us both? We then follow him. I mean, truth ought to have consistency to it. So that's my reading of this.